August 27th, Nebraska and Northwestern kick off the 2022 college football season in Dublin, Ireland. The battle for NU, right there, Big Ten opponents, rivals. I'm looking at the 2022 Nebraska football opponents because we're about a month away from Big Ten Media Days. And it's kind of time to start looking who we're going to be up against. Realistically, look at them from in depth. This isn't a prediction thing. I'm not going to make any predictions about the season in these videos. I'm just going to talk about our opponents, who they are, what they have to offer. John Johnston, Corn Nation. Subscribe to my channel because, well, I'd enjoy it more if I had bigger numbers because that's how we are. The Northwestern Wildcats, coached by Pat Fitzgerald. Honestly, I think the guy is one of the top 3 coaches in the nation. Most people would never say that, but I think that he is an incredible coach. And the reason why I think he's an incredible coach is because he always gets more out of his players than anybody thinks he can. They're constantly disrespected, the nerds from Northwestern. And yet, look at what they've done over the last 5 years. Second in the Big Ten West, first, 7th, last. First, and then last year tied with Nebraska for the bottom. And Nebraska, we beat them last year, I think 56-7, beat the tar out of them. But look at the chart and look at their recruiting rankings. They haven't finished in the top 10 in recruiting rankings in the Big Ten in, I don't know, at least a decade. And yet they've played for the Big Ten title 2 out of the last 5 years. You don't hear Pat Fitzgerald whining about getting better players or needing more depth or making excuses about why he's not winning football games. He just figures out how to do stuff with what he has. And that's why I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Now, the thing is his defensive coordinator, Mike Hinkwitz, retired in 2020 after the guy had like 51 years of coaching experience. Not all of it in Northwestern, but that's older than all of you guys, except for maybe a few. That's a long time to be coaching. You had to see everything in that span. And he was replaced by Jim O'Neill, who was a former grad assistant, and he came to Northwestern from the Raiders in the NFL. I think he coached the secondary there, but he was the defensive coordinator for the Browns earlier and the San Francisco 49ers. And I think the key to whether or not Northwestern's going to have the success they've had the previous 5 years is going to be whether Mr. O'Neill can figure out how to coach a college defense. So let's look at the offense. We're going to come back to the Northwestern defense a little bit. Northwestern's offense, 8 starters returning, and they were abysmal last year. I mean, they were bad. They were 116th in total offense and 125th in scoring offense. And that's out of 130 teams, including all these crappy small school teams you've never heard of. So what do they got this year? They have 8 starters returning. Quarterback, they have Ryan Helinski returning. And last year he completed 54% of his passes for 978 yards, 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Not exactly a barn burner guy. There's supposedly a redshirt freshman named Brendan Sullivan that is competing for the starting job. You also had another guy, Carl Richardson. I think he had maybe 2 pass attempts last year. And then you have an incoming freshman or an incoming quarterback, Jack Lausch, that maybe they'll look at and maybe he can upseat everybody and take the starting job. But the point is quarterback, fairly weak for the Northwestern Wildcats coming into 2022. What isn't weak is their running back core. Evan Hull ran for 1,009 yards last year, 7 TDs. Keep in mind they did not score a lot. 5.1 yards per carry. Earned Big Ten honorable mentions. That guy, a big key to their offense, I think, coming into this season. Cam Porter is another guy who missed last season at the running back position. Should provide carries for him this season. And a guy named Andrew Clare. 63 carries for 349 yards, 5.5 yard average, and 1 touchdown. Again, they didn't score a whole lot. So they're going to be expecting a lot out of those guys. Wide receiver, a guy named Malik Washington returns, 44 receptions for 578 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, nobody could throw him the ball. What's he going to do? Have 18 touchdowns from people that can't throw him the ball? They do have Donnie Navarro, transfer from Illinois, coming over to help them out in their wide receiver room. Their wide receivers sound like, well, you know what? We'll get to that at the end when we talk about how this is all going to work out for Northwestern. Here's the key. Northwestern's offensive line, 4 starters return, and that's a big deal. And they had to replace one guy. Well, they have a grad transfer, Vincent Picazzi. Could whack you. He's coming in, he's played 42 games at Temple and Colorado State, so he has experience to bring to the offensive line. Defense. Well, last year I think I looked at Northwestern and I thought, Jim O'Neill, can he figure out how to coach a defense? And it turns out that no, he really didn't coach very good defense, or they didn't do well on defense either. They were not a good team overall. They were 12th in scoring defense in the Big Ten, 13th in total defense, giving up 429.5 yards a game. Gad. All right, but they were good at pass defense, kind of. They were 8th in the Big Ten in pass defense and 10th in pass efficiency defense. So, there were some bright spots last season. 5 starters return on the defense. Key here, All-American Brandon Joseph, safety, transferred to Notre Dame. Because apparently, we can transfer all over and maybe he got a deal or something. But he went to Notre Dame. That hurts their secondary quite a bit. They do have cornerbacks Cameron Mitchell and A.J. Hampton coming back, and both of those guys were all Big Ten honorees, the honorable mention bit. Safety Coco Azema. I am going to butcher these names. 72 tackles that guy had. So they are missing some tackles in the secondary and some production, but I think their secondary looks, again, probably this year to be one of their strong suits on defense. Linebacker, they only have one guy coming back, Bryce Gallagher, who was their second leading tackler. They do have Wendell Davis, who is a grad transfer from Pitt, coming in. So linebackers. Okay, then we get into the guy who's probably the best player on their defense. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this name because I'll destroy it, and it sounds stupid. I'll just put his name up. God, I'll put up his name. A little thing you can read. And you can try pronouncing it at home because that'll be fun for you. But this guy, 36 tackles, led the team with 4.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss in 2021. Honorable mention, all Big Ten. Big key on their defensive line. But they need 3 other starters because they lost them. It's not a good thing when you lose starters. You get weak. And they do have, some grad transfers coming in on the defense. Stanford transfer defensive end Ryan Johnson and a transfer from UMass defensive tackle Tayshawn Holmes. 5 starters on offense. Not a real good-looking quarterback room. Decent-looking offensive line and running backs. And then you look at their defense. What is Northwestern going to do to win games in 2022? Well, I think they're going to do kind of what Pat Fitzgerald loves to do. He's going to drag you into a rock fight. I don't think you're ever going to see a Northwestern team whose goal is to score 40 points a game because, their quarterbacks have been, it's been like a carousel for quite a few years now. And they really struggled with that. Peyton Ramsey, I think, from Indiana transferred there a few years ago, and they were good. That's when they played in the Big Ten title game. But since then, really nondescript guys. They had, I think it was Hunter Johnson, transfer from Clemson. He was a 5-star recruit originally, and he just never worked out for him. He never really did much of anything, never played well. I don't know, maybe he got a degree in biochemistry. I don't know what happened to the guy. Did he grad transfer back to Clemson? Perhaps. We don't care. He's not at Northwestern anymore. But a pretty dicey offense. Their running game should be solid with Evan Hull, as long as people can stay healthy and their offensive line with experience. Defense, pretty questionable. Lack of experience. Maybe they have some players. Again, can Jim O'Neill put together a defense that can play in the Big Ten? Stop other team from scoring points. I believe that's the object of most defenses. So what do we think about them? What do I think about them? Or me, we, the turd in my pocket, and I think that, they're probably going to be improved, but they're not going to do that thing when they go worst to first, again. They're not going to win the Big Ten West. On the other hand, the Big Ten West, God knows who can win it. And I mean, every year it's anybody's because nobody is that great. And I think we're going to see that again this year, but we'll get to that. Against Nebraska, what would you do if you were Pat Fitzgerald? What is your game plan? Again, it's to get us into a rock fight. You don't care about scoring points. Why don't you care about scoring points? Because it's not a goal. What your goal on offense is to just get first downs and keep getting first downs. You're not thinking about scoring. You're just thinking about we're going to get 3.5 yards a carry. And if we get more than that, great. We're going to do probably dink and dunk passing type stuff. Maybe every once in a while try to hit something long, but they're not really known for hitting things long. So get into a rock fight with Nebraska. And I hate to say this, but just stay in the game. That's what they didn't do last year. Nebraska hit a long pass early just to begin the game, and we were off and rolling because good things happened, and we know what happened last year. If good things happened, Nebraska started playing well. So you just stay in the game if you're Northwestern. And you look at Nebraska and go, well, I guess we're just going to stay here, and maybe we're going to score 3 points or 7 points in a quarter, maybe get to 14 points by halftime. And we're going to look at you and go, hey, Nebraska, you going to keep shooting yourself in the foot again this year? Because you did that all last year. In fact, you've done it every year under Scott Frost, and we still have Scott Frost as a coach, so why should anything change? And that I'm not trying to be rude there, but that's the honest-to-God blunt truth, is you really just, as an opponent, you really just kind of play football. And in Northwestern's case, you try to keep your defense off the field and keep them from getting exposed, which means you're just going to run the ball a little bit, hope to get those small games, until Nebraska shoots themselves in the foot somehow. And that's what I think Northwestern is going to do against Nebraska and Ireland. It's going to be interesting, and it's getting closer every day. So I'd like to know what you think about Northwestern, and leave me comments. And like I said, subscribe, please. We'll do more of these with each opponent as the season gets closer. Thank you for paying attention. Go Big Red.